Now, we all knew this was coming. Mercedes was, of course, going to drop the top-of-the-line GT63 SE Performance after they unveiled the 43 and the regular 63 AMG GT. And now we have it, and this is just going to be a beast of a machine. First of all, I love the design. I've talked about the design here on the channel before, but now, even though this is going to be heavier than the old AMG GT because of the hybrid powertrain that we have here, we still have a V8 though, and the full power comes out to 805 horsepower. It's insane, the power numbers that we have right now. So we're gonna have a look at this design, talk a little bit more about this design because it's a beautiful design. There's one little detail that I'm not so sure about, and I'll let you know what that is in a minute when we look from the front, side, rear, and also the interior of this car. Before we jump in Photoshop, let's have a look at this article from Car and Driver, and let's see what AMG is all about these days. So 2025 Mercedes-AMG GT63 plug-in hybrid is an 805 horsepower beast. It's going to be insanely quick, this thing. And also, just imagine having that type of power in this type of beautiful package. It's just a stunning looking car. So you have a V8 hybrid system pumping out a ridiculous 1,047 pound-feet of torque. 2025 Mercedes-AMG GT63 E Performance pairs a twin-turbo V8 with a rear-mounted electric motor. 0 to 60 in 2.7 seconds, which for some reason feels like it might be even quicker than that. I'm not sure. Top speed of just shy of 200 miles per hour at 199 miles per hour. So the regular GT63 had 577 horsepower, which you would think sounds pretty decent to me, but AMG wanted to pump out a little bit more than that. So they have a E-motor produces 201 horsepower, which it sends to the wheels through a 2-speed transmission and limited slip differential. The E-motor can also send its power to the front wheels if necessary for extra traction. And I do believe you are going to need that extra traction in some cases. Feeding the E-motor is a lightweight 6.1 kilowatt-hour AMG specific battery that lives above the rear axle. It's nice to have that weight in the back instead of the front where we have the big massive V8, so it doesn't understeer. And looking at this picture here, you can see that the axle sits right here. The V8 actually sits behind the front axle, which AMG has done so well for so many years now. Audi just jumped on that same configuration a decade or so ago with the RS models. They used to have the engine in front of the front axle, meaning that it was very understeery, but Audi has fixed that now, and we can see we have the same situation here. So it's 0.3 quicker to 60 miles per hour than the company's claim for the standard GT63. You have 8 different drive modes. I'm not sure if that is a little overkill. It might be, including an all-electric setting, which I love that hybrids that have this setup with an E-motor, they do have this specific EV mode where you can just quietly cruise around if you want to, or just taking it for a very, very short drive. Some of these drive modes include the all-electric, of course, the Sport Plus, and Race. The hybrid AMG also gets 4 levels of regen for the battery. I'm always going to keep it at full regen all the time pretty much, except if I'm on the track or something like that, including a mode that is akin to one-pedal driving in an EV. You have revised aerodynamics for this top-of-the-line, lowers by roughly 1.6 inches when the car reaches 50 miles per hour. That's going to look fantastic on these rolling shots on the highway when it sits lower like that. You also have a retractable rear spoiler that raises at over 50 miles per hour and can alternate among 5 different angles for, of course, if you want more slippery car, reach your top speed, you want to keep it down low a little bit. Rear wheel steering is also standard, something that I love with Mercedes. I just reviewed the Mercedes EQE on the Sketch Monkey channel, and the wheelbase is really long on that, but the turning radius is absolutely fantastic. It feels like I'm driving a little Fiat Punto when I'm turning around the car. You have a charging port at the rear, which is different from the rest of the AMG GT models. A red GT63S badge, 10-spoke, 20-inch wheels finished in tantalium gray are standard, but you can have it with 21 inches as an option. I would definitely go for the 21 inches. Carbon ceramic brakes discs that measure 16.5 inches up front, huge, and 15 inches in the rear. You have performance bucket seats as an option. That is one option that I'm not 100% sure that I would personally pick. I want this to be a comfortable long GT cruiser as well. So having these bucket seats, I'm not sure. I haven't really seen them yet, so I'm not sure if I would pick that. In the US, Mercedes is also launching the Manufaktur Signature program, which brings exclusive paint colors, and it's supposed to reach dealers in the US in late 2024. So the standard GT63 comes in at $177,000, which is a lot for the GT. And then this new e-Performance comes in at over $200,000. But I don't know, it's to me, it feels like a perfect GT car, this thing, both when it comes to design, and then you have 805 horsepower. So let's jump into Photoshop here and have a look at this beautiful design that is the new GT, and this specific being the 805 horsepower top of the line model. So the front end, as I've said, we talked about this before, but let's just quickly have a look at this design again. First of all, the front end, the 63 differs from the 43 because we have this feature right here in the grille. So the grille has an additional opening in the bottom that we don't have on the 43. That is probably the easiest way to tell the 43 separated from the 63 models, is that we have this intake under the grille. I love that we have this frowning grille on the AMG GT. Normally, I'm not a fan of that. I want to have the more classic smiling grille that goes something like this of Mercedes. But in this one, this aggressive 805 horsepower beast, I like that the lines are planted downward or pointing outwards from the front end. Also, these lines, it just makes it look planted and it doesn't look angry. So we don't need to have an angry face. I don't think Mercedes should have a specifically angry face. It's more of an elegant car. I also love these headlights because we have this cut right here with this beautiful little angle or fold in the metalwork that then connects to the very corner here of the grille. We also have these two muscle lines, typical Mercedes lines in the hood, looking great, and we have this beautifully integrated side sill or air vent. Air flowing in here probably flows out right here in the wheelhouse. Overall, it's just a smooth, very nice, clean-looking design. We don't have a lot of sharp lines in this design, and I do think that suits Mercedes to have this type of styling. Now, looking at the side view, here is the biggest change from the previous AMG GT, because when you look at that, the greenhouse sits almost the A-pillar almost starts in the middle of the car of the old AMG GT, so it starts something like this. And it's insane, the proportions of the car, which I loved about the old AMG GT. This looks more like a Porsche 911 in a side view. We have a nice long hood here still, more of an upright design in the front compared to the Porsche, for example. I made a video comparing those two designs and which one I would buy. I might actually change my decision there now when this 805 horsepower version is out. We have this line at the bottom, but there is one detail here that I'm not entirely sure about, and that's gonna be you see this piece. I think the old AMG GT had such a better integration of this specific vent that we have in the front panel of the car. This feels like I don't want this to be here. It doesn't feel like it has any sort of connection to any other graphics in the side. And this is then also black. You can see the blacked out piece here, and then you have the door handle being in what looks to be chrome, so it kind of clashes. It feels out of place. I do like that we have the black side mirrors. It looks great, but as you can see, not a single sharp line in the shoulder line here, except for this line that goes in the bottom, which looks fantastic. And last but not least, of the side view, these wheels. I'm not, as you know, usually not a huge fan of black wheels, but this just looks great, specifically with the rest of the blacked out graphics that we have going around the window here and the side mirror and this lower side skirt here as well. Having blacked out wheels in combination with this orange color as well, I think it would actually go with these wheels for this car, and that is not something I would ever do, pick black wheels for my car. Now, looking at the rear end, I love the graphics here because look at what they did with these LEDs. These are protruding from the rest of the glass in the rear. These are actually separate pieces that don't sit behind the wheel. Instead, you can see it here. They sit on top of the taillight itself. A pretty unique integration. I also like that this is completely straight and very stretched out to the sides with these graphics. Again, same thing like we have in the grille treatment here with these angles pointing downwards. This creates a much wider look, even though it is already physically a wide car. This just emphasizes more graphically as well. Then we have a pretty organic looking solution for the integration of the diffuser. I do think this looks beautiful as well. We have the typical AMG 63 tailpipes down here, very aggressive diffuser. You can see the air flows in here and then shoots out through these vents in the lower section to suck the rear end down to the ground. We have a similar treatment of this. And I do believe this is a functional air outlet. I really hope so. Very similar to what we have in the front end in this area as well. So it has a clear connection, obviously. This being a Mercedes, it needs to have a congruent design all around the car. I would personally, this being the 63S, I would personally want to have the spoiler mounted up here. That is an option for the AMG 63, because I think that would add some more, you know, aggressive race car or functionality as well to the car, even though we do have this integrated spoiler that pops up at 50 miles per hour. And looking at the interior here, when it comes to the interior of Mercedes, some of them look fantastic, some of them look not that great, but this one I think looks great because, first of all, this is now centered. As I've said in the previous AMG GT videos, it doesn't have this, I think it's a 6-degree angle like this, and it's so annoying. For example, in the GLC, and I do believe the new C-Class has that as well. I want to have it just sit centered like this, but we still don't have a lot of buttons at the bottom, because you can see all the climate control settings are integrated in this lower section of the infotainment screen. Thankfully, this is static, so this is not going to go anywhere. It's always going to be right there. But I love the steering wheels of Mercedes these days. This being the specific AMG steering wheel, you have the drive mode settings here. You have some more suspension and stuff settings with this dial, and it just looks great. It looks small enough for a car like this, and it also very, very beefy. I love that about Mercedes. I also like the ambient lighting that Mercedes is hammering into their interiors. Some people might say that it looks like a mid-2000s nightclub or something like that, but I think it looks absolutely fantastic. It creates a cozy feel. You also have about 1,000 different colors or fade colors that you can choose from in the interiors of Mercedes. And look at this. This is the biggest deal for me in this interior, is that they didn't just slap a screen on the dash for the gauge cluster. They created a nice integration with some walls and a little bit of a roof for the gauge cluster. It looks great. I also like that the exterior color comes in here in the interior in some specific piece. It just adds a little splashes of color to the interior of the AMG GT. So overall, this is going to be a stunning, powerful beast of a machine, and I can't wait to see these out in real life.